Okay, we're going to do a brief overview of this section, right? So this section you can choose to do siding, sheathing, and some non-window trim, right? So non-window trim would be stuff like fascia and soffit, skirt board. We'll go into more depth about trim in a video that I'll link right here. This will be a question mark right here. But for now, know that these colors here represent what different types of trim, right? And you can see there's a little key over here. If you're not doing this trim, if you're not including the trim, you can ignore these colors, right? But those are there just to represent the different types of trim and how to tell the program what type of trim you want to include and what you don't. So the foundation of this section really is going to be every house has a side, right? It has many sides. So we're going to go and through each side of each house and select what shape it is, right? So for example, if we take a simple house like this, we can see that this house has 4 sides, and those 4 sides will just be 2 shapes, right? We'll have just a simple rectangle here, and then this will be like a triangle over a rectangle, right? So you can see the gable end will be a shape 2, and your eave ends, or these sides right here, will be shape 1, right? So in this section, it's really, if you're siding a house, you're doing trim for a house, or if you're just sheathing over framing, you're going to go and select, you can go side by side and choose what shape that side is, right? So for this one, this will be a shape 2, right? This gable end will be shape 2, so we can come here, select shape 2, right? We can add another, whenever you add another side, just click, scroll to your right and click, add another side. So we're going to have 2 sides at shape 2, right? We're going to have a 3rd side at shape 1. And shape 1, right, is just going to be this, just a normal rectangle or square. And then side 4, we're going to have another shape 1, right? So sometimes you'll have, for example, this in this house, we'd have, this is a shape 1, this is going to be a shape 1, this would be a shape 2, right? But this section in here, right, this is kind of an odd shape, right? What we can do is we can break a side up into different shapes, right? So we can see we have a triangle up here, which we can select. We go back to our program, right? That'll be a shape 4, and then we can combine it with a shape 5, right? So if we put those two together, you can see, right, this would be a shape 4, right, that triangle, and this would be a shape 5. So what we would do if we were, if we wanted to do a takeoff for that section, we would just scroll, add to the right, click shape 4, and then click shape 5 and fill in the appropriate information, right? So once you fill in the appropriate information, right, the height and width, you can see up here, reference the shape, and this is where to measure from, right? For example, shape 2, you don't measure from the peak, you just measure from the start of your angled roof, right? Enter that information in here, and that will give you the information you need, right? So let's just enter in some information. Let's say this shape 2 right here for this home, that this is going to be, we'll say 12 feet here, 12 feet height and 20 foot width. So we'll go and it'll be a 12 pitch. Right, so I'm just going to fill in this for one side or 2 sides. Let's just go 2 sides, but you're just going to go in and fill that information in for each one of your sides. You can see that for shape, you can see for shape 2, you see how we have roof pitch. See how roof pitch does not pop up in shape 1. That's because shape 1, we don't need a roof pitch, right? So it'll ask you for the information that you need, right? So next thing is you're going to choose what you're going to estimate for, right? Now if you just include sheathing in house wrap, right, you can see that it doesn't ask you for any additional information here. And the reason is this program doesn't take into consideration window openings when doing sheathing, right? Because a lot of times you'll just sheathe right over the window openings. So if you have really large windows or garage doors and you're not going to sheathe over those openings, then you're going to have to break out, your sides into smaller shapes. So just know that when you're doing an estimation for sheathing, it's not going to include spaces for window. That's why no information pops up. But if you choose siding, right, you're going to see that it's going to ask you for window and door openings, right? And that's going to give you a more accurate representation of how much siding you're going to need, right? So if we go here, right, we look shape 1, we can see we have 2 different types of windows, a door, 3 windows total. So you would just enter that in, right? So let's say we have 2 windows at, let's say it's 36 inches wide, 72 inches tall. We have 2 windows, and the other window is going to be, let's say, 36 by 36. Sorry, not right there. And that's going to be 1 window, and that door will be 36 by 82, and that's going to be 1 door, right? And so you can see that'll, when you do siding, that will take into consideration, depending on what you choose as your siding, how much siding you need, right? So we need 123 boards, right? If we get rid of this information, you can see we need 136. Now for trim, you'll see trim. You select trim, you're going to see you can now select which trim you want, right, for the side. So if you're doing siding and trim for a side, right, let's look at side 1, right? Side 1 is going to be shape 2. Do we want to include corner boards, right? You see how these corner boards are in red? We just click corner boards. Do we want to include fascia and soffit? Click that. Do we want to include a piece of trim right here? This does not have a piece of trim right here. This just has a corner board. It does not have a skirt board and does not have a frieze board. And a frieze board, I'll go into, is going to just be trim right up underneath your fascia, right, your soffit right there, right? So if you had that, whichever trim you want to include, this will give you the location of that trim, right? If you see any trim right here, so this green is going to be your frieze board, not your fascia or soffit, right? So that's basically the overview of this situation, right? Choose each side of the house, select what shape it's going to be, select what you want to estimate here, whether or not you want to do siding, sheathing, trim. Include window and door measurements if you want to get a more accurate estimation for your siding. Or if you don't want to include them and just use that as your extra for cutoff. And yeah, that's about it.